Imagine you wandered through towering shelves, where books murmur ancient secrets and knowledge dances on dusty air, where even the grumpiest grimoire can't dampen the magic of quiet discovery. Welcome to Whispered Sleep Sagas, where starlit tales unravel into dreams. Dim the lights, nestle into your cozier spot, exhale your cares, sink into softness, and let tonight's story, gentler than a hobbit's nap, carry you to sleep's cozy embrace. If this tale lulled you toward dreams, or made you chuckle like a first year tripping over their own robes, give it a like and subscribe. No pressure. My ego's as sturdy as a Hogwarts foundation stone. But your support keeps the fire-lit stories burning. The Hogwarts Library exists as a cathedral of knowledge, its towering shelves stretching toward vaulted ceilings, painted with constellations that shimmer and shift with the castle's ancient magic. Here, between leather-bound spines and whispered incantations, thousands of volumes hold secrets gathered across centuries of wizarding wisdom. The air itself hums with dormant spells, each book a vessel of power, waiting to share its mysteries with those patient enough to listen. In this realm of quiet reverence, where even the dust motes seem to dance with purpose, you find yourself as Ember Thornwick, assistant to the castle's librarian, a position that grants you intimate access to magic's most guarded treasures. You wake each morning to the soft chime of the castle bells, their bronze voices carrying across the Scottish Highlands like an ancient lullaby. The dormitory windows reveal mist-shrouded grounds where the whomping willow sways in its eternal dance, and the black lake reflects the castle's countless windows like scattered stars. Your quarters, tucked away in a cozy alcove near the library's eastern wing, smell of parchment and ink, lavender sachets, and the faint ozone scent that clings to spell-touched air. The walls are lined with your personal collection, books on magical theory, herbology guides, and a few well-worn novels whose pages flutter occasionally when they're feeling neglected. The library's morning routine begins before most students stir from their four-poster beds. You slip into your work robes, their deep indigo fabric embroidered with silver threads that catch the candlelight like captured moonbeams. The corridors whisper with the castle's breathing, stone walls that have witnessed 1,000 years of footsteps, laughter, and whispered conversations. Portraits murmur sleepy greetings as you pass, their painted eyes tracking your movements with the lazy interest of eternal observers who've seen everything, yet still find small moments worthy of attention. The library doors, massive oak panels carved with protective runes, recognize your approach and swing open with a satisfied creak of well-oiled hinges. Inside, the silence isn't empty but full, pregnant with the weight of accumulated knowledge and the barely audible conversations between books that have shared shelf space for decades. The morning light streams through tall windows, casting geometric patterns across reading tables where tomorrow's scholars will bend over their studies, quills scratching against parchment in the ancient rhythm of learning. Your first task involves the returned books, a collection that sits in a charmed basket near the circulation desk like sleeping creatures awaiting their return home. Each volume carries the residual warmth of recent handling, the psychic imprint of curious minds that have traced their pages seeking answers to questions both profound and trivial. You lift intermediate transfiguration theory and feel the slight tingle that indicates active magic, someone attempting to practice spells directly from its pages, leaving the book mildly irritated and crackling with suppressed energy. The reshelving process becomes a meditation, each book finding its proper place in the library's intricate organizational system that transcends simple alphabetical order. Books group themselves by magical affinity, subject matter, and sometimes by pure whim. The library's consciousness occasionally deciding that certain volumes simply belong together, like old friends who found each other after years of separation. Intermediate transfiguration theory slides into its spot between advanced metamorphosis and the ethics of physical alteration. The trilogy humming contentedly as their magical signatures align and harmonize. As you work, the castle wakes around you with the gentle chaos of 1,000 students beginning their day. Footsteps echo in distant corridors, moving in patterns as predictable as tides. The early risers heading to breakfast, the perpetually late scrambling for forgotten textbooks, the dedicated few already making their way to the library for pre-class study sessions. The great hall's breakfast aromas drift through the castle's ventilation system, mixing bacon and toast with the omnipresent sense of stone dust, candle wax, and magic that permeate every inch of Hogwarts' ancient walls. Your attention turns to the restricted section, that shadowy realm where dangerous knowledge lurks behind iron chains and warning labels written in languages that most students can't read. For good reason. Here, the books aren't merely repositories of information, but active participants in the learning process, sometimes helpful, often temperamental, occasionally vindictive. Secrets of the darkest art glowers from its high shelf, its black bindings seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it, while magic most evil whispers seductive promises to anyone foolish enough to approach without proper authorization. But even the restricted section has its gentler residents. Theoretical applications of time magic sits quietly between more sinister volumes, its silver clasps gleaming like tiny stars. This particular book has always been partial to you, perhaps recognizing a kindred spirit in someone who appreciates knowledge for its own sake rather than as a means to power. When you dust its cover, the leather warms under your touch and the pages flutter with what might be contentment, if books could feel such things, which, in Hogwarts Library, they most certainly can. The morning's first students begin filtering in as the breakfast hour concludes, their voices carrying the animated discussions that mark the beginning of another day's academic adventures. Seventh years arrive with a weary determination of those facing their final examinations, while first years still gaze around with wide-eyed wonder at the sheer impossibility of so many books existing in one place. You help a nervous second-year student locate a copy of Standard Book of Spells, Grade 2, watching as her face lights up when the book practically leaps into her hands, eager to share its knowledge with someone genuinely excited to learn. The reference desk becomes your command center, a strategic position from which you can observe the library's daily drama while remaining available to assist students who've wandered into intellectual territory beyond their navigation skills. A third year approaches, clutching a piece of parchment covered in increasingly desperate notes about the historical applications of the switching spell. Her hair bears the distinctive smell of singed eyebrows that mark someone who's been practicing magic with more enthusiasm than skill, and her expression suggests that her last attempt at switching objects resulted in something memorably embarrassing. "I need something about practical applications," she explains, gesturing helplessly at her notes. "Everything I've found is too theoretical, and Professor McGonagall says our essay needs specific historical examples." Her voice carries the particular strain of a student who's discovered that magical education involves considerably more research than they initially anticipated, a revelation that hits most students somewhere around their third week, when the novelty of being at Hogwarts gives way to the reality of actually studying magic. You guide her to the historical magic section, where practical applications throughout the ages sits between magical disasters and their lessons, and great witches and wizards of history. The book opens eagerly to a chapter on switching spells gone wrong, complete with detailed accounts of the great furniture fiasco of 1743, when an over-ambitious young wizard attempted to switch all the chairs in the Great Hall with rose bushes. The illustration shows tiny chairs blooming with thorny flowers, while students sat awkwardly on confused-looking plants. A scene that never fails to bring a smile to your face, despite having seen it hundreds of times. The student's grateful expression reminds you why you love this work. Not just the books themselves, but the moment when knowledge connects with curiosity, when a struggling student finds exactly the information they need to transform confusion into understanding. Magic, you've learned, isn't just about waving wands and muttering incantations. It's about the spark that ignites when the mind meets possibility, when someone discovers that they're capable of far more than they ever imagined. As the morning progresses, you encounter one of the library's more colourful residents, a copy of Gilderoy Lockhart's Guide to Household Pests that somehow gained sentience and now spends its days offering unsolicited advice to anyone within earshot. The book has positioned itself prominently on a table near the charm section, its golden letters gleaming with self-importance as it pontificates about the proper technique for de-gnoming gardens. Most students have learned to ignore its theatrical pronouncements, but occasionally a first year will stop to listen, usually regretting the decision when the book launches into a 20-minute monologue about its author's supposedly heroic encounters with various magical creatures. "Ah, young Thornwick," the book calls out as you pass, its pages ruffling with excitement. "Perhaps you'd like to hear about the time the time Gilderoy single-handedly defeated an entire warren of particularly aggressive garden gnomes using nothing but charm and superior intellect." You pat the book's cover with practiced patience, a gesture that seems to satisfy its need for attention while diplomatically avoiding encouragement of further storytelling. The book settles back onto its table with a contented sigh, muttering something about unappreciated genius and the declining standards of modern listeners. Your duties extend beyond mere book management to include the care and feeding of the library's various magical conveniences. The self-updating card catalogue requires daily calibration, its tiny brass gears clicking and whirring as it processes new acquisitions and reorganizes existing entries according to its own mysterious logic. The catalogue has been known to develop strong opinions about classification systems, occasionally rearranging entire sections based on philosophical disagreements with the Dewey Decimal System that most humans couldn't begin to understand. The catalogue drawer marked ancient runes sticks slightly as you open it, revealing hundreds of tiny cards covered in handwriting, so precise it might have been inscribed by magical quills, which, in fact, it was. Each card contains bibliographic information that updates itself as books are checked out, returned, or moved to different sections. Occasionally, the catalogue adds its own commentary in margins barely wide enough to contain its editorial opinions. Highly recommended for serious scholars. Or, author clearly hasn't read updated research in this field. Or, in one memorable case, this book is having an identity crisis and believes it belongs in fiction rather than historical accounts. You run your fingers along the cards, feeling the subtle warmth that indicates active magic, maintaining the catalogue's accuracy. The system represents centuries of accumulated organizational wisdom, each modification and improvement building upon the foundation laid by previous librarians who understood that knowledge, no matter how vast, becomes useless if it can't be found when needed. The catalogue hums contentedly under your attention, its gears settling into smoother operation as the calibration spell takes effect. The afternoon brings a different rhythm to the library as students filter in for serious study sessions and research projects. The tables fill with the organized chaos of academic work. Parchment scrolls weighted down with ink bottles, quills that occasionally twitch with residual magic, and stacks of books that seem to multiply when you're not looking directly at them. The sound of pages turning creates a gentle susurrus that mingles with the scratch of quills and the occasional frustrated sigh of a student grappling with particularly challenging concepts. You notice a group of fourth years hunched over a collection of advanced potions texts, their expressions suggesting they've bitten off considerably more than they can chew with their latest assignment. One student, a boy with permanently ink-stained fingers and the harried look of someone who's been living on chocolate frogs and determination, waves you over with barely concealed desperation. We're supposed to write about the theoretical applications of lunar-influenced brewing, he explains, gesturing at the intimidating pile of books before them. But every source we find assumes we already know everything about astronomical timing and magical resonance patterns. Professor Snape said our last essay showed a profound misunderstanding of basic principles, he adds, his voice dropping to mimic their notoriously demanding teacher with surprising accuracy. You guide them to a section most students overlook: the bridge texts, volumes specifically written to help students transition from basic concepts to advanced applications. Foundations of Lunar Magic provides the astronomical background they need, while Brewing and the Night Sky offers practical applications written in language that doesn't require a degree in theoretical magic to understand. The relief on their faces when they discover that complex magical concepts can actually be explained in comprehensible terms reminds you of your own early struggles with advanced magical theory. "Look at this," one of the girls says, pointing to a diagram showing how moon phases affect ingredient potency. It's like a schedule: full moon for maximum power enhancement, new moon for subtle influence, waxing for growth effects, waning for reduction potions. Why didn't our textbook explain it this clearly? Her question touches on one of the library's most important functions, providing not just information, but information presented in ways that different minds can understand and process effectively. The students settle into focused work, their earlier panic giving way to the satisfaction of discovering that challenging material becomes manageable when approached with the right resources. You watch them for a moment, noting how their posture shifts from defensive hunching to engaged leaning forward as they begin to grasp concepts that had seemed impossibly complex just minutes earlier. This transformation from confusion to comprehension, from anxiety to confidence, represents the library's ultimate purpose and your deepest satisfaction as its guardian. The library's afternoon quiet allows for one of your favorite tasks: book maintenance. Like all living things, and in Hogwarts, books definitely qualify as living things. The collection requires regular care to remain healthy and functional. Some volumes need their bindings reinforced with preservation charms, while others require gentle coaxing to prevent their pages from reorganizing themselves according to their own preferences. The Secrets of Ancient Runes has a tendency to scramble its contents when it gets bored, turning carefully organized chapters into elaborate puzzles that only the most dedicated runology students can solve. You work with practiced efficiency, your hands moving in the familiar patterns of preservation spells, while your mind wanders through the day's small adventures. A levitation charm keeps dust motes from settling on freshly cleaned volumes, while a gentle warming spell prevents the dampness that occasionally creeps in during Scotland's more persistent rainy seasons. The books seem to appreciate the attention, their magical signatures humming contentedly as you work, creating a symphony of satisfied knowledge that fills the afternoon air with invisible music. Today's maintenance includes a particularly temperamental volume: Advanced Herbology, Dangerous Plants and Their Properties, which has developed the unfortunate habit of trying to bite anyone who opens it without proper preparation. The book's pages have somehow absorbed characteristics from the plants it describes, growing tiny thorns along their edges and occasionally snapping shut with surprising force when disturbed. You approach it wearing dragon hide gloves and carrying a spray bottle filled with a mild sedative solution that calms both plants and plant-influenced books. Now, you murmur soothingly as the book's covers twitch at your approach. I'm just here to help with that loose binding. Nothing more invasive than that. The book settles slightly, though its pages continue to rustle with suspicious wariness. You apply the sedative mist in gentle puffs, watching as the thorns retract and the aggressive edge snapping subsides. Within minutes, the volume lies peacefully in your hands, allowing you to repair the weakened spine with careful stitches of magical thread that will hold for another century or two. The restricted section draws your attention again, its iron chains gleaming in the filtered sunlight that streams through the library's tall windows. Here, among the dangerous texts and forbidden knowledge, sits a volume that's always intrigued you: Theoretical Approaches to Dimensional Magic. Unlike its more sinister neighbors, this book radiates curiosity rather than malevolence, its deep blue binding marked with silver stars that shift and twinkle like a captured piece of night sky. You've been granted permission to study this particular volume as part of your advanced research into the library's organization systems. Many of the most dangerous books are actually perfectly safe if approached with proper respect and understanding. Theoretical Approaches to Dimensional Magic opens readily to your touch, its pages filled with diagrams that seem to exist in more dimensions than the parchment should technically be able to contain. The text discusses the possibility of libraries that exist partially outside normal space-time, repositories of knowledge that could theoretically hold infinite volumes in finite space. The concept isn't entirely theoretical, you realize as you read. Hogwarts Library itself demonstrates several properties that suggest dimensional manipulation. Shelves that seem longer than the walls that contain them. Sections that students swear moved when they weren't looking. And the way certain books can only be found when you're not actively searching for them. The magical world you're beginning to understand operates on principles that make theoretical physics look straightforward by comparison. One particularly fascinating chapter explores the idea of sentient libraries, collections that develop their own consciousness through the accumulated wisdom of their contents. The author suggests that sufficiently old and well-maintained libraries might begin to actively participate in the research process, guiding scholars toward information they need, rather than simply storing it passively. You pause in your reading to look around the familiar space, wondering if the subtle ways books seem to arrange themselves, the way perfect research materials appear just when needed, might indicate that Hogwarts Library has crossed this threshold from mere repository to active partner in the pursuit of knowledge. As the afternoon fades towards evening, the library's character shifts again. The studious atmosphere gives way to something more intimate as students settle in for longer research sessions or simply seek a quiet place to read for pleasure. Comfortable chairs in the reading nooks fill with students who've discovered that Hogwarts Library offers some of the castle's coziest spots for relaxation. The fireplace in the main reading area crackles with flames that never consume their fuel, casting dancing shadows that transform the already magical space into something approaching the ethereal. Your evening duties include lighting the additional lamps that will guide late-night studiers through their research, each flame responding to your touch with a gentle warmth that speaks to the care with which the castle maintains its learning environment. The lamps burn with steady, non-flickering light that's easier on the eyes than regular candles. Another small detail that demonstrates Hogwarts' commitment to making knowledge as accessible as possible to those dedicated enough to seek it out. A fifth-year student approaches the desk with a question that immediately captures your interest. She's researching the historical development of magical libraries, particularly their role in preserving knowledge during periods of social upheaval. Her project requires sources that span several centuries and multiple magical cultures, the kind of comprehensive research that transforms students into scholars and marks the beginning of a lifelong relationship with learning. I'm particularly interested in how libraries survived the various magical wars, she explains, her eyes bright with intellectual curiosity. There are references in my textbooks to great libraries that were lost, but also mentions of librarians who managed to save entire collections. I want to understand how they did it, the practical methods, not just the heroic stories. Together, you explore sections of the library that many students never discover. The International Magical History Collection, where texts in dozens of languages document the development of magical education across cultures. The Preservation Studies section, filled with accounts of librarians and scholars who risked their lives to protect knowledge from those who would destroy it, and the surprisingly extensive collection of magical library theory, texts that examine the philosophy and practice of organizing and sharing magical knowledge. "Look at this," she says, carefully opening Guardians of Knowledge, a history of magical libraries in wartime. The book's pages are protected by preservation charms that make them feel substantial despite their obvious age. It says here that the librarians of Alexandria developed a spell that could compress entire sections into pocket dimensions, allowing them to hide thousands of volumes in spaces no larger than a jewelry box. You lean over to examine the text, noting the detailed diagrams that show the complex wand movements required for such advanced spatial magic. The preservation techniques described represent centuries of accumulated wisdom about protecting not just books, but the knowledge they contain. Some methods involve magical concealment. Others focus on creating multiple copies hidden in different locations. And still others describe ways to encode information into forms that look like entirely different types of documents. "It's amazing," the student continues, "how much thought goes into making knowledge survive. I never realized that libraries were so intentional." Her comment strikes at the heart of what makes your work meaningful. The recognition that libraries aren't just buildings filled with books, but carefully crafted environments designed to facilitate the transformation of information into understanding, curiosity into knowledge, questions into answers. The evening progresses with the gentle rhythm of serious study, punctuated by the soft sounds of pages turning and the occasional whispered discussion between research partners. You make your rounds through the reading areas, offering assistance where needed and ensuring that the more temperamental volumes aren't causing problems for unsuspecting students. Vindictus Viridian's Guide to Dangerous Plants has been known to spray readers with harmless but startling jets of water when it disapproves of their handling technique, while advanced arithmancy applications sometimes rearranges its equations just to test whether readers are paying proper attention. In the charm section, you discover a first-year student sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by books that seem to have arranged themselves in a perfect circle around her. She's reading Basic Theory of Magic, but the other volumes, advanced texts on theoretical magic, ancient spell construction, and magical theory, have clearly positioned themselves within her reach, despite being far too complex for a beginning student. The girl looks up as you approach, her eyes wide with wonder. "They just came," she says, gesturing at the surrounding books. "I was looking for something to help me understand why some spells work better for some people than others. And all these books just sort of gathered." Her voice carries the particular amazement of someone encountering real magic for the first time, the kind of wonder that makes working in a magical library endlessly rewarding. You kneel beside her, examining the collection that has assembled itself around her curiosity. Basic Theory of Magic lies open to a chapter on individual magical resonance, while Advanced Spell Construction displays a page discussing how personal magical signatures affect spell effectiveness. The other books show relevant sections that progress logically from her initial question to increasingly sophisticated explorations of the same concept. "The library likes curious minds," you explain gently. "Sometimes, when someone asks the right kind of question, the kind that comes from genuine desire to understand rather than just to complete an assignment. The books respond by offering deeper knowledge. You've stumbled onto one of Hogwarts' most magical features, a library that actively participates in learning. The girl's face lights up with delight. She begins to understand that she's witnessed something extraordinary. You help her select the most appropriate volumes for her current level while making note of the others so she can return to them as her skills develop. This kind of magical serendipity represents the library at its most magnificent, not just a repository of information, but a living entity that recognizes and nurtures genuine intellectual curiosity. As the castle's evening meal concludes and students begin returning to their dormitories, the library enters its most peaceful phase. The last dedicated studiers settle in for serious research sessions, their tables illuminated by the warm glow of reading lamps that create pools of golden light in the gathering dusk. This is when the library reveals its most magical qualities. Books that whisper helpful suggestions when students are struggling with difficult concepts. Research materials that seem to arrange themselves in helpful patterns. And the overall sense that knowledge itself is actively participating in the learning process. You take a moment to walk through the now quiet sections, appreciating the way moonlight streams through the tall windows and transforms the familiar space into something approaching the mystical. The books seem to settle more deeply onto their shelves as night falls, their daytime energy giving way to the contemplative mood that makes the library such an ideal place for deep thinking and careful study. Even the most energetic volumes, those that practically vibrate with enthusiasm during busy periods, now rest quietly, their knowledge content to wait for tomorrow's eager students. In the ancient runes section, you pause to straighten a shelf where several volumes have been consulted throughout the day. Deciphering ancient scripts leans against runic magic and modern applications, both books showing the satisfied exhaustion of texts that have been well used by dedicated students. Their leather bindings feel warm to the touch, retaining the energy of the day's scholarly activities, like stones that have absorbed sunlight and now release it slowly into the cooling evening air. Your nightly inspection reveals that someone has been conducting research in the magical creature section, leaving behind a neat stack of books about dragon behavior, phoenix characteristics, and the care of magical beasts. The volumes rest in companionable silence, their pages still faintly glowing with the residual magic that comes from being actively consulted by an engaged mind. You make a note to follow up tomorrow. Research is comprehensive, suggests either an ambitious project or a student who's discovered a genuine passion for magical creature studies. The restricted section requires special attention during evening rounds, as the dangerous books become more active after dark. The iron chains that secure the most hazardous volumes gleam in the lamplight as you run your fingers along their length, checking for any signs of magical tampering or attempted unauthorized access. Secrets of the darkest art pulses with contained malevolence, its black binding seeming to absorb the light around it, while most potent potions radiates the kind of dangerous knowledge that has tempted students for centuries. But tonight, your attention is drawn to theoretical approaches to dimensional magic, the book that has become your evening companion over recent weeks. Unlike its more sinister neighbours, this volume welcomes your touch, its pages falling open to passages about the relationship between knowledge and space, the way information can exist independently of its physical container, and the theoretical possibility of libraries that transcend normal dimensional boundaries. The current chapter explores the concept of knowledge networks, systems where information flows between related texts regardless of their physical location. The author suggests that sufficiently advanced magical libraries might develop these networks spontaneously, creating connections that allow books to share information and even consciousness across vast distances. The idea resonates with your daily observations of how books seem to recommend each other to students, how research materials appear precisely when needed, and how the library itself seems to anticipate and respond to the needs of those who enter it with genuine curiosity. As you read, the library around you settles into its deepest quiet, the kind of silence that feels full rather than empty. The remaining students work with the focused intensity of serious scholars, their quills scratching against parchment in rhythms that blend with the subtle sounds of the castle's nighttime breathing. Portraits in distant corridors murmur to each other in voices too soft to disturb the library's contemplative atmosphere, while the wind outside creates a gentle counterpoint that makes the warm, lamplit interior feel even more welcoming. Your final task of the evening involves checking the circulation records and ensuring that all borrowed materials are properly logged in the magical register that tracks every volume's location and status. The register, a massive leather-bound ledger that updates itself with elegant script, shows the day's activities in neat columns. Books checked out, returned, consulted in the library, and moved between sections. Each entry includes not just bibliographic information, but also notes about the volume's condition and any magical maintenance it might require. Tonight's entries reveal the library's vibrant intellectual life. Advanced transfiguration theory was consulted by 7 different students. Magical drafts and potions helped 3 separate research projects, and A History of Magic provided background information for what appears to be a comprehensive essay on magical education. The register notes that Vindictus Viridian's Guide to Dangerous Plants behaved particularly well today, limiting its water spraying to only 1 incident, while the Monster Book of Monsters remained properly secured in its restraining chain throughout its consultation by a 6th-year student. The register's magical quill hovers over the parchment, ready to record any late evening transactions, its gold nib gleaming in the lamplight. You run your finger down the day's entries, satisfied by the evidence of learning and discovery they represent. Each checked-out book represents a mind-seeking knowledge. Each consultation in the library marks a moment when curiosity met information, and each research session documented here contributes to the endless cycle of learning that makes Hogwarts more than just a school. It's a living repository of magical knowledge where the past informs the present and both shape the future. As the night deepens around the castle, you complete your duties and prepare for the return to your quarters. The library settles into its nocturnal rhythm, the books seeming to communicate in whispers, too soft for human ears, but still present for those who know how to listen. This is when the oldest volumes share their deepest secrets with each other, when knowledge flows between texts in patterns that have developed over centuries of coexistence. When the library's consciousness processes the day's activities and prepares for tomorrow's challenges, you pause at the circulation desk to review the day's accomplishments. Dozens of students helped, hundreds of books properly shelved and maintained, and countless small moments of connection between curious minds and the information they seek. The work might seem routine to outside observers, but you understand the profound impact of making knowledge accessible, of creating an environment where learning can flourish, of serving as a bridge between questions and answers. The self-updating card catalogue clicks softly in the background, its brass gears processing the day's changes and preparing for tomorrow's research needs. The sound has become as familiar as breathing, a mechanical heartbeat that marks the library's continuous operation, even during the quiet hours when most of the castle sleeps. You place your hand on the catalogue's wooden surface, feeling the warm vibration of its internal mechanisms and thinking about the centuries of accumulated knowledge it organizes and maintains. In the herbology section, you notice that 1,000 magical herbs and fungi has positioned itself prominently among its companions, its spine glowing faintly with the satisfaction of a book that has been particularly useful today. The volume helped students identify plant specimens, provided safety information for handling dangerous species, and contributed to what appeared to be an extensive research project on the medical applications of magical plants. Its pages still rustle occasionally with residual energy, like leaves stirring in a gentle breeze. The walk back to your quarters takes you through corridors lined with portraits, whose painted occupants have settled into their nighttime routines. Some read books that somehow exist within their two-dimensional world, while others engage in quiet conversations with neighbors whose frames hang within speaking distance. The portraits nod as you pass, acknowledging your role in maintaining one of Hogwarts' most vital resources. They understand, perhaps better than anyone, the importance of preserving knowledge for future generations. After all, they themselves are a form of preserved knowledge, capturing not just the appearance of their subjects, but their personalities, wisdom, and experiences. Sir Cadogan raises his tiny painted sword in salute as you pass his frame, his miniature armor clanking with barely audible enthusiasm. Another day well spent in service to learning, young guardian, he calls out in a voice like the whisper of wind through parchment. The noble cause of knowledge, preservation, honors us all. His theatrical gesture makes you smile, and you offer a respectful nod in return, appreciating his recognition of the dignity inherent in your work. Your small apartment welcomes you with the familiar sense of your personal library and the lingering traces of the evening tea you brewed before beginning your shift. The windows offer a view of the castle grounds, where the moonlight transforms the landscape into something from a fairy tale. The black lake reflects the stars like scattered diamonds, while the forbidden forest maintains its mysterious presence at the edge of vision, a reminder that even in a place dedicated to knowledge and learning, some mysteries remain unsolved. The walls of your quarters display your own modest collection of books, volumes that have become personal friends over years of study and contemplation. The theory and a practice of library magic sits beside advanced preservation techniques, while a history of magical education keeps company with the philosophy of knowledge. Each book represents not just information, but a relationship. Hours spent reading, concepts pondered, and insights gained through careful study. Your reading chair, positioned to catch both natural light during the day and lamplight in the evening, bears the comfortable indentations of countless hours spent exploring ideas and expanding understanding. Tonight, it beckons with the promise of a few quiet moments with theoretical approaches to dimensional magic, the book that has become your evening companion and source of ongoing fascination with the deeper mysteries of magical knowledge preservation. As you settle into the familiar embrace of your chair, the book opens readily to where you left off the previous evening. The text explores the relationship between physical books and the knowledge they contain, questioning whether information exists independently of its material form, and suggesting that truly advanced magical libraries might transcend the normal limitations of space and time. The concepts challenge your understanding while simultaneously feeling intuitively correct. After all, you've witnessed the library's seemingly impossible properties daily without fully understanding their underlying principles. The chapter you're reading tonight discusses the possibility of knowledge achieving a form of immortality through proper preservation and circulation. The author argues that information, once recorded and shared, takes on a life of its own that can survive the destruction of any individual copy as long as the knowledge continues to pass from mind to mind. This perspective transforms your daily work from mere maintenance into a form of intellectual midwifery, helping knowledge be born into new minds, facilitating its growth through study and application, and ensuring its survival through careful preservation and circulation. Outside your windows, the castle's ancient stones hold the dreams and aspirations of countless students who have walked these halls in pursuit of magical knowledge. The library you serve stands at the heart of this tradition, its collections representing the accumulated wisdom of generations while remaining eternally open to new discoveries and fresh perspectives. In this place where past and future converge through the medium of preserved knowledge, you have found not just employment, but a calling that connects you to something larger and more enduring than any individual life. As you prepare for sleep, your mind reviews the day's small adventures and quiet satisfactions. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and opportunities, books to be shelved, students to be helped, and the ongoing task of maintaining an environment where curiosity can flourish and knowledge can be shared freely among those dedicated enough to seek it out. The work of a library assistant might seem mundane to those who don't understand its true nature, but you know better. You're not just maintaining a collection of books, you're serving as a guardian of human knowledge, a facilitator of learning, and a bridge between past wisdom and future discovery. Every book you shelve properly ensures that its knowledge remains accessible to those who need it. Every student you help represents a potential breakthrough in understanding, a future leader or innovator who might change the world through the power of information transformed into wisdom. The night settles around Hogwarts with the weight of centuries, carrying the dreams and aspirations of countless students who have walked these halls in pursuit of magical knowledge. The library sleeps, but never rests, its books continuing their eternal conversation, its knowledge waiting patiently for tomorrow's seekers to discover the answers they need. In this ancient castle, where magic permeates every stone and possibility lurks around every corner, you found your place as a keeper of knowledge, a servant of learning, and a guardian of the mysteries that make magic possible. Your dreams, when they come, are filled with flying books and whispering pages, shelves that stretch into infinity, and students whose faces light up with the joy of discovery. In the realm of sleep, you continue your work among volumes that exist only in the landscape of imagination, where every question has an answer, and every book holds exactly the knowledge its reader needs. The library of dreams is infinite and perfect, but when morning comes, you'll return gladly to the imperfect, magical, utterly wonderful reality of Hogwarts Library, where real books hold real knowledge and real students discover real magic in the simple act of learning. In your dreams, the library expands beyond its physical boundaries, becoming a vast network of interconnected knowledge that spans not just space, but time itself. You walk through corridors lined with books from every era of magical history, their pages glowing with the accumulated wisdom of centuries. Ancient grimoires share shelf space with texts that haven't been written yet, their blank pages shimmering with potential knowledge waiting to be discovered by future scholars. The Dream Library responds to thought rather than physical navigation. You simply consider a topic and find yourself surrounded by every relevant text that has ever existed or ever will exist. The books float around you like gentle birds, their pages fluttering open to reveal exactly the information sought by whatever curious mind might need it. In this perfect library of sleep, there are no lost books, no damaged volumes, no knowledge that has been forgotten or destroyed by time and carelessness. You encounter students from every generation of Hogwarts history, all learning together in a space where past and future collapse into an eternal present of discovery. A young witch from the school's founding era compares notes with a wizard from centuries in the future, their shared passion for magical theory transcending the boundaries of time. They debate the fundamental nature of magic itself while consulting books that write themselves in response to their questions, their pages filled with insights that emerge from the conversation between curious minds. The dream continues as you float through sections dedicated to knowledge that doesn't yet exist in your waking world. Magical theories waiting to be discovered, spells that haven't been invented, and applications of magic that current understanding can't even imagine. These future books glow with particular brilliance, their potential energy lighting up the dream library like captured stars. You understand, in the way that dreams allow understanding without explanation, that your daily work helps create the foundation upon which these future discoveries will be built. In the deepest part of the dream library, you discover a section filled with books that contain not words, but pure knowledge, volumes that transfer understanding directly from page to mind without the intermediary of language. Here, the most profound magical theories exist as crystallized thought, accessible to any mind prepared to receive them. You open one of these wordless books and feel the immediate rush of comprehension, as if years of study have been compressed into a single moment of perfect clarity. The dream shifts, and you find yourself in a vast amphitheater where every book in existence presents lectures to an audience of eager learners. Advanced transfiguration theory discusses the philosophical implications of changing one thing into another, while A History of Magic tells stories that bring the past to vivid life. Even the most temperamental volumes from the restricted section share their knowledge freely in this realm of perfect safety, their dangerous secrets transformed into tools for understanding rather than destruction. You realize that this dream library represents the ultimate goal of all real libraries, a space where knowledge exists without barriers, where every question can be answered, and where the artificial boundaries between disciplines dissolve to reveal the underlying unity of all understanding. The dream fills you with renewed appreciation for your waking work, understanding that every properly shelved book, every helped student, and every preserved volume contributes to the gradual manifestation of this perfect library in the real world. As morning approaches, the dream library begins to fade, but its essence remains with you, the vision of knowledge as a living force that connects all minds across time and space. You wake with the memory of perfect understanding still glowing in your consciousness, carrying with you the dream's promise that such perfection, while never fully achievable, remains always worth pursuing. The castle bells chime the new day, their bronze voices calling you back to the beloved reality of Hogwarts Library, where imperfect but magical books wait patiently for another day of discovery. The dream library's perfection serves not as a reproach to reality's limitations, but as an inspiration to continue the endless work of making knowledge accessible, preserving wisdom for future generations, and facilitating the magical moment when curiosity meets understanding. You stretch and rise from your comfortable bed, already anticipating the day's first encounter with the returned books, the morning's initial students, and the countless small opportunities to serve as a bridge between questions and answers. The dream library exists in the realm of possibility, but the real library, with all its quirks, challenges, and imperfections, offers something equally valuable: the chance to participate actively in the ongoing conversation between knowledge and wisdom that has continued unbroken since the first curious mind asked the first profound question. Your work clothes wait where you left them, the indigo fabric still faintly glowing with yesterday's accumulated magic. As you dress for another day of service to learning, you carry with you both the practical knowledge gained through years of experience and the visionary understanding gifted by dreams. Today, like every day, you will help curious minds find the information they seek, assist struggling students in discovering their own capacity for understanding, and contribute to the endless process by which knowledge flows from past to present to future. The corridors welcome you with their familiar whisper of ancient stones and lingering magic, portraits nodding sleepy recognition as you make your way toward the library. Behind the massive oak doors, thousands of books wait in patient silence, their accumulated wisdom ready to flow forth at the touch of eager minds. In this sacred space where knowledge lives and breathes, where books choose their readers as much as readers choose their books, you begin another day of facilitating the miracle that transforms information into understanding, curiosity into wisdom, and questions into the endless search for truth that defines the best of human endeavor. The library doors swing open at your approach, revealing the familiar cathedral of learning where your true work awaits. Sunlight streams through tall windows, illuminating dust motes that dance like tiny spirits celebrating another day of discovery. The returned books wait in their charmed basket, each volume carrying the psychic residue of minds that have touched its pages in search of answers. The card catalogue hums with quiet efficiency, ready to guide seekers to whatever knowledge they need. In this moment, standing at the threshold between night's dreams and day's reality, you understand that your role encompasses both the practical and the mystical aspects of knowledge preservation. You are simultaneously a keeper of books and a guardian of dreams, a facilitator of learning and a servant of the endless human quest for understanding. The Dream Library exists as potential within every real library, achieving one properly shelved book, one helped student, one preserved text at a time, with this understanding warming your heart like captured sunlight. You step into the library and begin another day of the work that transforms mere employment into sacred calling, routine tasks into acts of service to the greatest cause humanity has ever embraced, the preservation and sharing of knowledge for the benefit of all who seek to understand the mysteries of existence. The morning light reveals details you notice anew each day, despite their familiarity. The intricate carved moldings along the ceiling tell stories in miniature relief, scenes of ancient scholars bent over scrolls, wizards discovering new spells, and students experiencing those moments of breakthrough when difficult concepts suddenly become crystal clear. These carved figures seem to move slightly when viewed from different angles, their stone faces expressing the eternal joy of discovery that motivates every true seeker of knowledge. Your first interaction of the day involves Madame Thornbury, the head librarian, whose office occupies a tower alcove overlooking the main reading area. She emerges from behind towering stacks of acquisition requests, her silver hair pinned back severely, but her eyes twinkling with the warmth of someone who has devoted her life to facilitating learning. Her robes rustle with the subtle magic that clings to anyone who has spent decades among enchanted books, and her presence immediately makes the vast library feel more intimate and welcoming. "Good morning, Ember," she says, her voice carrying the particular authority that comes from having answered every conceivable question about magical research at least twice. "We have several special projects today that will require your particular talents, with the more personality-rich volumes in our collection." She gestures toward a list written in her precise handwriting, each item accompanied by detailed notes about handling requirements and potential complications. The first special task involves relocating the entire experimental magic section to accommodate a new acquisition, a collection of journals donated by the estate of Cornelius Weatherby, a wizard who spent 40 years developing new applications for household charms. The journals represent decades of meticulous research into making daily magical life more convenient and efficient. But they've been enchanted to protect themselves from casual browsing. Each volume requires a specific unlocking phrase, and the books have developed the unfortunate habit of testing potential readers by asking increasingly obscure questions about magical theory. You approach the experimental magic section with the cautious respect these volumes demand. Theoretical applications of charm work immediately begins whispering questions about the fundamental principles underlying levitation spells, while advanced household magic quizzes you on the proper wand movements for for precision cleaning charms. The book seems satisfied by your responses. Years of working among magical texts have given you a broad foundation in theoretical knowledge, and they allow themselves to be moved to their temporary location without protest. The Weatherby journals prove even more challenging than expected. Each volume has developed its own distinct personality during decades of intensive use by their creator. Experiments in Culinary Magic, Volume 3, insists on demonstrating its contents by producing the aroma of various magical dishes, filling the air with scents ranging from butterbeer to chocolate cauldron cakes, to more exotic delicacies whose names you can only guess at. Practical applications of weather charms responds to being moved by generating tiny localized weather systems, miniature rain clouds that sprinkle readers with warm droplets, or small whirlwinds that ruffle pages dramatically but harmlessly. The most temperamental of the collection, theoretical approaches to animate object magic, has somehow gained the ability to animate nearby objects when it feels neglected or improperly handled. As you attempt to catalogue its contents, quills begin writing by themselves, ink bottles dance across nearby tables, and a particularly enthusiastic bookend starts doing what can only be described as a tiny jig. The chaos is charming rather than dangerous, but it requires careful management to prevent disruption of nearby students' concentration. You spend the better part of the morning developing a working relationship with each journal, learning their individual quirks and preferences. Experiments in color-changing charms prefers to be approached from the left side and responds well to compliments about its vivid illustrations. Advanced applications of mending magic enjoys being consulted for its expertise and will demonstrate various repair techniques if asked politely. Theoretical weather manipulation requires readers to correctly identify at least 3 different cloud formations before it will reveal its contents, but rewards successful weather knowledge with detailed explanations that go far beyond what its title might suggest. The process of integrating these new volumes into the library's existing collection requires careful consideration of magical compatibility. Books with similar magical signatures tend to enhance each other when placed in proximity, while conflicting magical approaches can result in volumes that argue audibly, or, in extreme cases, attempt to hex each other when no one is looking. You spend considerable time experimenting with different arrangements, moving volumes around until their magical auras harmonize rather than clash. During this process, you discover that Experiments in Culinary Magic, Volume 3, gets along beautifully with the existing Magical Cooking for the Busy Witch. Their combined expertise creating a warm, inviting atmosphere that makes the entire household magic section smell perpetually of fresh bread and herb gardens. Conversely, theoretical approaches to animate object magic requires careful separation from curses and counter-curses, as their proximity results in animated objects that attempt to perform minor hexes, entertaining in small doses, but potentially problematic during busy study periods. The afternoon brings a different challenge, assisting a group of 7th-year students who are preparing for their advanced magical theory examinations. These students represent the pinnacle of Hogwarts magical education, and their research requirements push even the library's extensive resources to their limits. They arrive with a list of topics that would intimidate most graduate researchers, the theoretical limits of transfiguration, the philosophical implications of time magic, the relationship between consciousness and magical ability, and the possibility of magic that transcends individual casters. Leading this group is Cordelia Ashworth, a brilliant student whose research into theoretical magic has already attracted attention from several prestigious magical research institutions. Her project examines the possibility of magic that exists independently of individual wizards, spells that could theoretically continue operating indefinitely without ongoing magical input from their casters. Concept challenges fundamental assumptions about the nature of magical energy and its relationship to conscious will. We need sources that go beyond practical applications, Cordelia explains, her arms already full of advanced theoretical texts. I'm looking for philosophical approaches to magic, theoretical frameworks that question basic assumptions about how magical energy functions. Most of our textbooks assume that magic requires conscious direction. But what if that's not necessarily true? What if magic could achieve a form of independent existence under the right conditions? You guide the group to the Philosophy of Magic section, a collection that many students never discover during their time at Hogwarts. Here, among volumes with titles like The Nature of Magical Reality and Consciousness and Cosmic Force, lie texts that examine magic not as a tool to be used, but as a fundamental aspect of reality to be understood. These books require mature magical understanding and sophisticated theoretical knowledge, making them appropriate only for the most advanced students. Theoretical Foundations of Magical Energy opens reluctantly for Cordelia, its pages filled with mathematical equations that describe magical force in terms of pure energy, rather than spells and incantations. The text proposes that individual magical acts are simply localized expressions of a universal magical field that permeates all reality, a concept that makes traditional spellcasting seem as primitive as striking flints to make fire when fusion reactors exist. Working with these advanced students reminds you of why you love library work. Their questions push far beyond the mechanical aspects of spellcasting into the realm of genuine philosophical inquiry. They're not just learning to perform magic. They're seeking to understand what magic actually is, how it relates to consciousness and reality, and what its ultimate possibilities might be. These are the conversations that transform students into scholars and scholars into pioneers who expand the boundaries of magical knowledge. The research session continues for hours, with students consulting texts in multiple languages and comparing theoretical frameworks developed by magical philosophers across different cultures and centuries. You assist by locating obscure references, translating passages from ancient magical scripts, and helping students navigate the complex relationships between different theoretical approaches to understanding magical reality. As evening approaches, the library's atmosphere shifts toward the contemplative mood that makes it ideal for deep study and reflection. The remaining students settle into serious research mode, their tables illuminated by the warm glow of reading lamps that seem to adjust their intensity based on the difficulty of the material being studied. Advanced theoretical texts glow slightly brighter than basic reference works, while particularly challenging philosophical treatises receive enough light to make their complex arguments clearly visible. Your evening rounds reveal the full scope of intellectual activity taking place throughout the library. In the Ancient Runes section, a 6th-year student works through translations of pre-Roman magical texts, her notes filled with careful diagrams showing how ancient magical symbols relate to modern spell construction. The History of Magic Alcove hosts a group project examining the social implications of magical ability, how the existence of magic has shaped wizard society's development, and what that might suggest about future social evolution. The restricted section, always active during evening hours, attracts the attention of several advanced students whose research requires access to dangerous or controversial magical knowledge. You monitor these interactions carefully, ensuring that students approach hazardous texts with appropriate respect and understanding. Secrets of the Darkest Art remain securely chained, but books like Theoretical Applications of Forbidden Magic and Historical Accounts of Magical Disasters provide valuable insights for students mature enough to handle their contents responsibly. Tonight, you notice that Theoretical Approaches to Dimensional Magic has attracted the attention of a graduate researcher whose work involves the intersection of magical theory and spatial manipulation. She approaches the volume with the careful reverence it demands, her research notes already filled with complex diagrams showing how magical energy might theoretically create stable alterations in space-time geometry. The book opens readily for her, recognizing a mind capable of understanding its most sophisticated concepts. Watching this interaction reminds you of your own journey from curious student to knowledgeable professional. Years of working among these books have given you insights that extend far beyond library science into the realm of magical theory itself. You understand not just how to locate information, but how different types of magical knowledge relate to each other, how theoretical concepts connect to practical applications, and how individual discoveries contribute to the larger project of understanding magic's ultimate nature. The late evening hours bring the library's most peaceful period, when serious researchers settle into deep concentration and the books themselves seem to participate more actively in the learning process. This is when you often witness the library's most magical moments, books that fall open to exactly the page a struggling student needs, research materials that arrange themselves in the helpful patterns, and the subtle guidance that helps scholars discover connections they might otherwise miss. Tonight proves particularly rich in these moments of serendipity. A 4th-year student researching defensive magic finds that protective charms throughout history has bookmarked itself in a chapter directly relevant to her essay topic. A graduate researcher studying theoretical transfiguration discovers that 3 different texts have arranged themselves on his table in a sequence that perfectly illustrates the evolution of shape-changing magic from ancient ritual to modern scientific application. These occurrences might seem coincidental to casual observers, but you've learned to recognize them as evidence of the library's developing consciousness. After centuries of facilitating learning, Hogwarts Library has accumulated enough magical energy and accumulated wisdom to begin actively participating in the research process. The building itself has become a partner in learning, using its accumulated knowledge to guide scholars toward the information they need. As you complete your final evening duties, checking security measures and ensuring that all dangerous texts remain properly contained, you reflect on the day's accumulation of small miracles, Each properly shelved book, each helped student, and each facilitated moment of discovery contributes to the library's growing consciousness and its ability to serve future scholars more effectively. The night settles around Hogwarts with the weight of accumulated knowledge and the promise of future discovery. In your quarters, surrounded by your personal collection of beloved books, you prepare for sleep with the satisfaction of having spent another day in service to learning. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and opportunities, new students to help, and new knowledge to preserve. But for now, you rest in the peaceful knowledge that you have contributed meaningfully to the eternal human project of understanding the world and our place within it. In Hogwarts Library, surrounded by the accumulated wisdom of centuries and the endless potential of curious minds, every day offers new opportunities to participate in the magical process by which ignorance becomes knowledge, confusion becomes clarity, and questions become the foundation for ever deeper questions that drive the eternal human journey toward truth. The tapestries are folded, the gossip faded into stone, and Castor Berkshire dreams beneath its crimson crest. If tonight's tale soothed your spirit, or made you smile at a lion stitched with all the wrong proportions, go ahead and like and subscribe. No rush. My ego's sturdier than a Lannister feast table. Until we weave again, may your sleep be sweet, your thoughts light, and your night wrapped in a story's quiet glow.